access to the schedule. Plumbing company, they always show up.
It's gonna be probably.
To see if they
negotiations. Very much look forward to this process. My name is Seth Thompson. We've had the opportunity to meet through Teams in person last time. I just want to let you know that I'm very much looking forward to this. The district is as well. We very much thank you for all of the work and effort you do on behalf of the children of this district. And, you know, we know that you have hard jobs. You do a very good job at it. And our goal, and we're going to reach that goal, is to reach a fair negotiated agreement that represents all parties to it. And, you know, that process of going through it is an important process. So, you know, we've got a set of ground rules that we would propose for you tonight once we kind of get done, maybe doing a few more of the preliminaries and all of that. But very happy to be here and forward to this process.
Awesome. I think we have to echo the same sentiment. Just walk hand in hand through the process together and get to a good agreement starting tonight with the proposed ground rules. And we have a set of rules that we'll share with you. I'm sure they'll be very similar from past negotiations. So yeah, looking forward to starting the process.
Absolutely. One thing I do want to note, I do have a little bit of a hearing problem. So at times, sometimes I have to ask people to repeat themselves if I'm doing that. I'm not trying to be rude. I just occasionally, depending on the acoustics of the room, I need a little bit, needs to be a little bit louder, but it's good in this room, but liking how it's starting off already. Some things to know about me. When I negotiate, I'm very interested in getting to fully understand what the proposal is you're bringing forward. Sometimes it's pretty clear, what the proposal is seeking to do, but I like to ask a lot of questions, so I can really sometimes maybe better understand what's the problem we're trying to solve, because sometimes, without digging and getting into that process, it's hard to actually really get to what's the burr under the saddle, or what problem are we trying to fix. So I encourage you to, consider that same approach too, because I think it's helpful when you're thinking about things that the district is bringing forward. What are we trying to fix here? And, we're also always looking, both parties are, at what are the potential unintended consequences and how does this fit in with the larger agreement? I like to be involved with the process, and I think that helps us all get a better final product when we're done, which is really what we're looking for.
Excellent. Yeah, Amanda and Cindy have done a great job as we've started to come together in the draft proposals. They've added rationale behind those different things to help us answer those big questions. So whenever we bring something there'll be a rationale as to what we're looking at, why we're looking at it, and hopefully that helps in the process.
Yep, I think so. I mean, part of this process is, not just, handing proposals back and forth and seeing when one party willing to accept and the other party's not willing to. It's creatively coming up with a joint document to address, your concerns, district's concerns, stakeholders and everything like that. So absolutely, I'm already excited for the optimism.
Yeah, you bet. Echo the same sentiment. Let's do this thing.
Well, we have a set of proposed ground rules here. What I can do is we can hand those out and I can maybe just walk through them. I realize you may want to take some time to caucus. I'm sure that we'll maybe want to do the same with yours as well. And then, let's work our way to ending tonight with a set of signed ground rules. Get this process started off and ready to roll. That sounds like a good deal.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Goes good with that. All right. Ready? Taking a look at. Yeah. I got facetious and I already put today's date on the bottom, so there you go.
Awesome. Good, I like it.
Thank you.
There we go. Yep. These are our copies. I got some extra. All right. Well, maybe, given a lot of them are what appears to be similar, it might be easier just to, we all just take a look at them right now, and kind of identify what the, potential differences are, so that we can, make sure we see that. I'll go ahead and start at the top. Yeah. So it looks like we're, both proposing that meetings are scheduled every Tuesday at 6 p.m. with a preference to 6 p.m. Meetings will be scheduled for, looks like you're proposing 90 minutes. We're proposing 120 minutes or 2 hours. And then, of course, if both parties agree, we can go past that time. Just to maybe give you a little perspective on kind of some of the thought behind 120 minutes or 2 hours. What I often find is when you kind of get into the process and, really start engaging back and forth on things, sometimes you can build some momentum up and, everybody's kind of in the zone, everybody's focused and all of that. So from our perspective, having that little bit more time kind of helps us, all, work towards that. But at the same time, we're certainly like to hear your kind of thoughts on, an hour and a half or 90 minutes too. That
Sure. And what we were thinking was along the same lines as we pick up momentum in any given session, we could certainly add more time. However, if there are those meetings that maybe get a little bit stagnant or whatever, we're thinking 90 minutes, we could be in and out an hour and a half. We had it at 100, or we had it at 2 hours, went to 90 minutes, thinking we could probably be pretty efficient with our time within 90 minutes. It's kind of what we were thinking.
Well, I don't think either of us need answers until
Sure.
we take a little bit of a
Sure.
break, but I think one thing I would point out is even if we have it scheduled for 2 hours, and if we say we're reaching that 90-minute mark and we're talking and we're like, I don't know that we're going to be able to get a proposal together, a nice package and all of that back to you. It's going to take. Okay, so number 2. So your proposal, this kind of consists of the negotiations team and kind of the structure of it. The team would consist of 3 members at the table. The board team you're proposing would consist of 2 members and a board appointed attorney. We had indicated, up to 4 people on the WIA team sitting at the table, and then 4 on each side is kind of what we were suggesting. But do you anticipate having any other negotiation teammates?
No, okay, this is our team.
Okay.
And then as I understood it, the team consisted of you, Chris, and Mr. Sue, right? So that's how I
That's where you
understood it.
came
So
with
that's where we came with the 3 and 3.
Okay, we'll talk on that and take a look at that.
Is Joe wanting to be part of the team? Is that why? We have 4, or was? I'm just curious. I don't think it matters to
Yeah,
us.
no, I'm on the subcommittee.
Okay,
the curriculum, so this is happy to
okay,
play my role in it.
okay.
I think you bring a great insight to it.
I think we're kind of proposing the same thing on, people outside of the teams aren't necessarily speaking or participating unless we, kind of agree on. Correct. And there have been times, I know that in the last round, we did that where we wanted to hear a perspective, for example, from the superintendent or, business manager or whatnot. So,
That would fall in line with number 3.
I think that was, well, yeah, moving on to 3, that does fall in line with that. I mean, with the, both the superintendent are the, the superintendent and the business manager serving as resources for providing, factual information and, understanding, what, data exists regarding, the cost of this proposal and whatnot. And I'll just note that later on in the proposal, we recognize that, we don't need to, you don't need to be submitting open records requests for that. So we'll touch on that later. I mean, if there's, data you're looking for to cost a proposal out, we just want to, I'll get to that one in a little bit. I just want to make the point that it's going to come. Number 4, each team, of course, we're going to follow, the open meeting laws of the Century Code. 5, each team, has the right to caucus outside of each other's presence.
Just make maybe a quick comment on 5 stuff as it
Yeah.
relates to maybe the proposal and number 1 related to the minutes. I think if we agree that caucus is going to be 45 minutes for either side, and that's part of the weekly allotted time, I think that's maybe a little bit more reason why it should be 120 minutes, because if each side could caucus for 45 minutes, that could essentially eat up the whole meeting in theory on each side. So if we were to go with the 90 minutes, then I think we would need to look at maybe a lower amount on caucus. If we stay at 45, I think it's a little more reason maybe to go at 120.
Point. 6, this is, relates to the transcription, the audio, the recording and all of that. Your proposal, all minutes go through one recorder, given to HR for transcription, posted on the website within 24 hours, sharing an electronic file, live streaming. Our proposal is that, first off, absolutely we agree that the meetings need to be recorded. Our proposal is to not live stream the meetings, record them, and, the district will prepare a more, I would say, not so much transcript version of minutes, but a more condensed version of minutes. At the meeting, we discussed proposal A, B, and C, reached a tentative agreement on X. The thought, at least our thought process behind that is, we have the recording. We can go to the recording and make, either listen to it or transcribe directly from it. But just to be direct, it does get to be a cost item for the district to create an almost verbatim transcript of the negotiation session when we may not need it, but we have the ability to make it at a later date if we need it. And part of the additional thought process behind this is generally how the court system works. You don't always end up with a transcript from every hearing or get together, I guess, but it's absolutely recorded so that it can be transcribed, so that there can absolutely be a record made. We were just thinking it makes a little more sense to, again, rather than providing a verbatim, as long as we have access to it, which we do through recording, our thoughts were making sense to do that.
As far as live stream goes, we're looking at a 350 member assembly, which it'd be tough to put it in here. And we'd like to give our assembly the option, if they choose, be able to watch it in real time as things unfold.
Okay, understand that. I know last time, as I recall, that they were live streamed. How about historically, and I said not personally in the know on the process, have they historically been? And part of this relates to technology too, I know that.
Sure.
It started during the COVID that time when we were not, didn't have any regulations of like, you couldn't have so many in the building, but I think because live streaming was becoming so much of an easy option that people started doing it, and I know it was live streaming then for that reason, because it had been happening all year with all the meetings, so it was something
Yeah.
that continued in 2021, I think, or, yeah, it would have been the spring of 2021, I believe.
One point I think I would make too, when it comes to, I mean, I'll say it, negotiating a contract is kind of like how Congress makes legislation. You don't necessarily want to see the process all the time, but you know, you're interested in the end result. To be clear, this is public. I know all of that. But sometimes if a person is looking at kind of a snapshot of what's going on in a meeting, it's a little bit easier to take it out of context than, you know, part of the more broad discussion, because as we, know, when you're engaged in negotiations, proposals that maybe are okay at this point, maybe if the other party is seeking a different increase in another area or change, that might, modify a previous proposal, just, that sort of thing, because it, I guess my point is it can cause problems with, well, this was, I mean, clear that everybody agreed on this. Well, at one point, yes, perhaps, but maybe that proposal was agreed on pending some other proposals. And sometimes it's easier to make, kind of make it a little bit, taken out of context at that time. And it can be unintentional. That's one of the thoughts behind the live streaming part. But we'll certainly think about that and ask you to do the same.
Is this meeting being live streamed or is it just recorded? Is that why it's on?
That's a great question.
I'm just
I don't
curious.
know.
It is? Okay.
I think most board meetings are live streamed, correct? If I'm not, is that? accurate?
Yes.
Okay. The workshops that aren't live streamed, correct? Okay.
Seven, yes, each turn will take turns, each team will take turns facilitating the meetings. Absolutely. The next one, number 8. Talking about proposals, after this meeting here, each negotiating team will provide proposals they plan to bring to the table. Proposal can be added up until April 29th. Pending completion of legislative session. Any additional ones after April 29th would be with agreement of both parties. What we've suggested is that after this meeting, at our first meeting, we'll each provide a list of non-salary proposals or non-economic type proposals that we would, each party would want to bring. Give me 1 second, I just want to make sure. One of the, from my perspective, I think it is good to have at least a standard or a set time when parties should have proposals in, just to keep the process moving along, because it's easy for either part. If we continue, if the ability to add things up until the end happen, it can sometimes kind of hamstring us, everybody, both parties. So I do recognize that there will be, and there can be circumstances where in the process, something will get brought up and, you may explain a particular proposal in a way that leads you to realize that means we also need to address this. Those are logical outgrowths and they certainly happen. As we're working towards, ultimately reducing the number of proposals and reaching to tentative agreements and all of that, I think having kind of a deadline or a, set time kind of forces both sides to put the work in on the front end to figure out what's really important. I think, at the same time, if a party wants to bring something additional up, you know, I mean, I think we could from my perspective, certainly have that discussion because it may make sense to bring it up, but I just, from my experience, it's helpful to have a kind of a, all right, let's show the cards, let's put the proposals out there by a certain time.
And that's where we wanted to throw in the April 29th, set that as a goal, if you will. To make sure that our proposal items can be added up until then. Ideally, we'd like to be able to flesh out as much as we can quicker, because that's beneficial to everyone, including the district, like we try to get contracts out, so on and so forth. So we wanted to make sure we set that date in there. And also, as you know, so much of what we do, especially once we get to the monetary side, is going to be dictated by Bismarck when they finish the legislative process. So we were hoping that seemed reasonable to us. I mean, I thought, okay, we'd like to have everything on the table by then.
We were kind of specifically thinking of when would we include the monetary ones,
Right.
right? When we
Right.
think, is there an end date, or are we just going to be in communication with, hey, in 2 weeks, we want to have all monetary? I think that's where the date comes from, is really that when we want that sure done
Sure.
for proposals.
I do see what you're saying. Yeah, you're addressing all proposals by that time so that you have the
Mhm.
flexibility. Yeah. And I should note that what we are suggesting in our paragraph number 8 is that all non-monetary, non-salary proposals should come by this certain date. But I agree with, we need to have a figure on that. And my recollection is from the last time, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I think the way we had handled this was, you know, as we got into the process, I think it was kind of we kind of forecasted and said, hey, we think at the next meeting, we're probably going to be at a point where we need to maybe start talking about some economic monetary items. That's kind of how I'm, in my mind, thinking that we would continue, but and I think so.
Yeah, as long as we're open to like this next week, we're gonna have these, but then if a week later something changes, then can we add those, or will there be like
Want to make sure there's room for flexibility.
a definite, like, hey, it's only this week and then anything after or not?
Yeah. We'll talk about it, my perspective. You know, things do come up that, you know, through discussions and all of that, it's, you know, so there can be some, you know, discussion on bringing something in and all that. I think the thing that I've always tried to kind of prevent is the never ending bringing of proposals. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting you have or would do that. But in the past, that's why with other, you know, not this group, but other negotiations, I've always sought to have some sort of limiting factor on that. But
And I know our goal, we want to just get right down to it. Lay it all out there, get to it, flesh these things out, and then we can do what's best for our assembly and our district and our kids, and just get right down to business. So, yeah, I don't foresee 350 items coming out to the, it's right, so I'm being a little facetious, but
I know what you're saying. It's, you know, and I think we have an incentive too. Let's talk about issues, you know,
Right.
let's focus on, you know, things that are important, and let's go directly at them and do it. Yep.
Is your April 29th date more so related to like salary schedule and financial matters? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, figured by then the legislation would be done,
That too.
so then we would be able to have
we were trying,
numbers.
Yeah.
And that way then. Hopefully,
I think Matt's in here somewhere. What do we have, 43 days left?
Yeah,
Is that right?
I think they're
Down there?
43 and we said that.
43 in right now, so 30 left or so, depending on how many they leave.
Trying to- And then figure out, okay, every Tuesday, so that gives us, and so that's where we got 29th.
But we're flexible too, if you want to talk about it.
Sure.
Just maybe I think you're right.
No, go ahead. You can talk about that. I was just gonna clarify, not when you say non-salary, so are you thinking just the salary schedules are like, we wait on those, but if we have any other monetary things that we wanna bring up, we should bring those up earlier, or is like non-salary and non-monetary like, interchangeable?
Well, I think we did say non-salary here, you know, I've always kind of looked at it from the perspective of technically everything in a contract probably has a cost item, I realize
Yeah.
that. But I think we're still talking, you know, really when it comes to salary and all of those sorts of.
The actual schedule.
That would be my,
Okay.
because if you're proposing, you know, time for some sort of activity or something like that, that probably isn't as dependent on the legislature, you know, as opposed to a general salary increase or.
Okay,
Good question. And just for perspective, going back and looking, I think we signed the proposed ground, or the ground rules, I should say, last time on March 29th. So I think 10 days, or I think we're about 10 days ahead is what I'm just trying to point out from where we were a couple of years ago. Good, absolutely. So I think that was number 8. Number 9, we're talking about the agenda. And we're gonna have an agenda set for the next meeting, date, time, all of that. Okay, I think your proposal is, agenda items may be added, but you must have at least 48 hours, and you can't add at a meeting. And I think we had suggested 24 hours, but also agreement agenda items can't be added at a meeting. Right?
And we're just looking at, so with the 48 hours, it's really tough, especially coaching and families, and we're all going different places. So that would at least, if we meet every Tuesday, then that means by Sunday evening, if there's a change, we can at least try to process it, collaborate Sunday evening, because if it was Monday at 6, you know, I'm just leaving practice and they're running kids, and that doesn't leave much time to try and flesh something out. So we're just looking at that 48-hour window.
Fair point. You know, I think the one thing to note too is, and this is how we will approach this. If you know even further in advance of that, we don't have to wait until, you know.
Absolutely. Maybe we can make that note in there that, hey, if we know 72 hours in advance, let's get that information out so everybody can collaborate, work together and move forward.
Yeah. And go on the page, I think it's the same one. Appears to be, you know, once we've gone through a proposal, we have a tentative agreement on it. We're talking the same thing, that we'll, you know, prepare a document for, you know, the next meeting for signing off on a tentative agreement on that. Once all proposals have been tentatively agreed to, looks like we have the same thing, that both parties have 5 business days to ratify the agreement. If either party fails to ratify it by this deadline, it'll inform the other party. That's the thing. I think this actually is verbatim.
I think it is verbatim.
Yep.
Looks pretty good.
11, informational handouts. This is the proposal where or, you know, part of the ground rules where we're both talking about if there's a, you know, if you're seeking a change in X and you've got some data or something you'd like us to consider, and vice versa, that we try to get those out. You know, you had said at least 48 hours, we had said 24 prior to it being discussed. I would imagine the discussion you just had on 24
Yeah,
4
same
days,
thing.
same
Yeah.
slide here.
And again, better sooner than later would be better.
Right, that's right. So if we can get that information out faster, we will.
Thing here, and I think it looks to me like when we used this one before, we had recognized that because we had said that. Yeah, I think, yep. Yeah. Number 12. This looks to be the same. You know, this relates to, you know, the professionalism with which we'll all bring to this. Both teams are going to conduct themselves in an orderly, courteous, professional manner. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. Silence our cell phones during the meetings. I think I'll probably do that. So, yeah, I think that's the way to absolutely treat this. I mean, we can have passionate discussions about some proposal that's important and all of that, but at the end of the day, we're all professionals, we're all adults, and we're all treating each other that same way because we're setting a standard, you know, for the students of this district.
Set the standard, model the standard, be the standard, all about it. Let's do it.
Next one, goal for completion. We had identified a goal for the completion of the negotiation process of May 5th. You had identified May 13th. Just curious, and I'll say our date was, we just tied it to what we had last time. There wasn't a magical.
Right, and we were just looking at the every Tuesday. I'm looking at my calendar right now. And it was either gonna be the 6th or the 13th. And I know we have the word goal in there. It's kind of a funny word. The 6th or the 13th, you know, it really comes down to when are we gonna get information from the legislature so we can all make good, smart, educated decisions.
And we just kind of felt that 29 days, that kind of doesn't give a whole lot of time for anybody to be able to do things, but 13th gives us a little bit more time to.
Good point. Our 14, you don't have in there, but I think maybe you addressed it earlier that we specified, you know, the district will share requested financial documentation without you having to submit an open records request. What we ask though is all of those requests go to the superintendent, just so they're going to a common person, so it's easier for us to, or actually the district itself to, you know, keep track of and keep those moving. And the last one is again, statement of good faith. The Williston Basin School District, District 7 Board and the Williston Education Association will negotiate a new negotiated agreement in good faith pursuant to North Dakota law. In lockstep on that. Any questions that anybody maybe has before we take a couple of minutes and go talk with our respective groups?
Cindy, is there anything that jumps out to you?
No, that's not, we haven't.
Nothing.
Kind of.
Right, there's nothing that jumps out to me. So, we wanna
Yeah,
take a minute.
take a few
get with
minutes.
our groups. Maybe we can head back. That's all right, it's everyone.
Thank you all.
We want to put a time limit on this or?
I don't think it's gonna take us long, so.
We'll let you know when we're ready. How about you do the same?
Okay.
You know, and I don't think it'll take, I think Chris is correct.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll help that.
You got mine too, so. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. We're gonna go to the Zoom room. To the Zoom room. More room than that.
We're pausing for the events.
Oh, so I can.
Meeting in the other little room.
No,
Well, maybe we were just talking a lot.
Yes.
Just not.
Just, yeah.
This is last.
No.
Right. We may have done the same, we updated, ours, just our proposed ground rules, for your review or thoughts, hand that out and.
No, we didn't. We chopped everything up and went right to highlighter and red ink.
Okay.
We're teachers.
Hey,
Red pen.
I got a lot of those documents when I was. in
Right.
school.
So if there's some PTSD behind it, we're sorry.
I think it, really, I think we're, really in agreement on a lot of stuff there, so maybe I think it'd be helpful, I'll just go ahead and walk through it. And I'll identify, what normally in proposals, we redline and all of that, but these, there were just minor tweaks and all that, so this was more of a version. I'll tell you where we, modified. So. On the very first one, this, we did stay at the 120 minutes for, for the meetings. But we are in agreement that if, we're gonna be diligent with everybody's time. There's no doubt about that. So if we're at a point where we need the rest of the session to work on proposals or likewise, we'll just communicate that. And, if we're making good progress, we'll keep the momentum. Everybody's got the ability to do it. Yeah.
And as we looked at it, we think 120 minutes, especially like what Chris was saying, said, hey, look, if you guys go into caucus for 45 minutes and we go into caucus for 45 minutes, we got nothing done. It makes sense, practical. So 120 minutes makes a lot of sense.
Number two, we followed your language there and modified it to be in accordance with that. 3, I think we were on the same page. That's superintendent, business manager will serve as source. 4, of course, we're in agreement there. Of course, each teams could follow the open records. 5, we stated the 45 minutes there on the caucus. 6, we modified ours. What we're suggesting is we'll live stream it. And we'll link to that recording on the website. We'll also audio record just in case there's, a glitch or something like that. And we'll make that audio recording available prior to the next meeting. And we will prepare a condensed version of minutes for approval at the next meeting. What we're suggesting there, I think, a little bit of a compromise that way. We understand your point about your membership wanting to understand that. And, I think this is certainly something that's a good way we can do that. 7, each team will take turns facilitating. We had the same one there. 8, this is the one where we're talking about, when non-economic or non-salary proposals will come forward. We stayed with our, a list of non-salary, non-economic proposals by April 1st, but we again kind of wanted to clarify we should just talk,
Right.
as for, hey, we're getting to the point where we think we're going to deliver an economic proposal next time, that sort of thing. I think that's.
And we like that you mentioned that in a way we could technically tie everything to a monetary value, but we just kind of smiled and nodded. What we're really talking about is the salary schedule, right? So we'll do our best to get all that information out there to you and then try and be prudent with our time. As soon as we have information, we'll get it to you as far as proposals are concerned. Yes.
Sounds all right there. 9, this is the setting of the agenda. We move to your language. We understand your point, 48 hours just to give, a little bit more time. So we're on the same page with that one. The next one relates to the, once the tentative agreement is reached on a particular proposal. I think this was actually verbatim between the two of them. 11, informational handouts. The only change was we agreed, if we're gonna do the agendas, the 48 hours, we'll do the same here. You had a good point on providing that, so you have adequate time.
And we want you to know that if we have information sooner than 48 hours, if we could get it out to you on a Friday, that's our intent, is get that out to you on a Friday.
Appreciate it. The next one, I think all the rest of them are identical. The next one, we are certainly going to all conduct ourselves in an orderly, courteous, professional manner, that we're all the same on that. We moved to your language on the goal for completion, May 13th. We understand your point there. 14 was one you didn't have, but, we of course, will share requested financial documentation without you needing to submit some form of open records request. Just please follow them all.
And we thought that was reasonable.
Yeah,
Very reasonable. It's run all that through the superintendent.
And, the last one being, both parties, agreed we will absolutely negotiate this agreement in good faith and that way to work with each other. Oh, I think, if you've got things you want to, if you need some time to talk about, or if there was something that you wanted added or something.
Just want to take a quick look at 2 one more time.
Yeah.
And then we have numbers. The members sitting at the table, us. Board team will consist of 2 board members who are parliamentary. So this team can turn the resource people that like to use resource people. Okay. Team. Participate.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones that were? And again, if you want to take a few minutes, we respect that. Otherwise, I don't think there were.
Yeah, when I took the notes in our meeting, everything lines up with what is in here. If you guys would like to go talk, you can, but
Yeah, by all means, don't, I'm not trying to.
no,
We just want to discuss. Do you want what we were talking about?
What we're hearing.
No, about keeping it forward. And being able to have people come in as we discuss specifics.
We can.
I'm just asking.
Sure. So when we were looking at your initial proposal with number 2, we had a team that consists of 10 or fewer, and we think that was probably from when we were merging the districts, and there was a lot of stuff going on. We wanted to have a lot of people, right? That made sense to us. With 4 members sitting at the table as what we were looking at, we didn't think that was horrible as we talked about. Who the 4th member is that, could that be we a president on a Tuesday the 6th and then a special ed consultant on Tuesday the 13th? Like, who would the 4th member be, or would that be set in stone?
Well, at least from my perspective, your committee is your committee. I don't know that we respectfully would be telling you who you can have on your, you know what I'm saying? It's, it's kind of a.
I guess we just wanted to have some preventative maintenance there in case, say, hey, that's not a bad idea. We've got Mr. Barch at the table. We think that's great that he's here. We love that there's 4 members who should be here. and you like the idea of being able to bring in a fourth, it's something that we hadn't thought of.
Would maybe a way to address this is up to 4? You know, then that way if, you know,
It could just be the 3 of us, or if we ask someone to sit with us at a meeting.
I think that
Yeah.
would be-
Sounds good.
I think so too.
I don't have any issues going to 4, on the side, just for your guys' knowledge, it will be the board appointed attorney, and then Mr. Swinton, myself.
Okay, okay. I guess I was confused when Mr. Barr showed up. Okay, so okay, if,
Yeah, so the board, we set ours July 1, at our first July meeting. That's our annual meeting, and that's when we set all committees. So our committees are voted on by the board and approved at that time. So,
okay,
so that would be a full alteration if we were to change our set. So I'm.
oh, so that would cause,
Yeah, that would deviate from a lot of the process on our
Okay.
end. But I'm perfectly comfortable with you
Yeah,
guys.
you are.
That's
No
your,
problem.
that's your guys'.
And it might be nice if Mr. Barsh is here when we talk about the activities too. So I mean, would that allow for him to be here on your side if we go
Would that
up to
provide-
4? Or does that mess everything up still if we stay?
oh, and Mr. John's on that committee as well.
Oh, you're on that. Okay, never mind. So you
I
can
am,
have questions too.
But certainly I think if, you know, there's a specific area such as the extracurriculars, I think that's where both parties agreeing to allow a non-team member to speak. You know, this would be the team at the table here,
Okay.
but certainly if your side or the board side has somebody that could provide value on a specific topic that we know we're going to be discussing at whichever meeting it might be, I think we just could communicate that ahead of that meeting.
Okay.
And say, hey, it might be beneficial if
We're gonna
Mr.
have,
Marsh is here, or Mr. Conley, or whoever it might be.
so for number 2, then we would strike the 3 and say the WIA team will consist of 4 or fewer WIA members with only, well, I guess we don't need that, just it'll consist of 4 WIA members. And would this kind of be what?
Say with up to 4 members sitting at the negotiations table for any given meeting.
I like up to,
Yeah, I do too.
that's,
That gives us flexibility.
That's what they were.
3,
yeah,
4,
up
4.
up to
For
4.
striking it.
Yeah, we're striking it.
Consistent, more consistent.
So if we could go up to, like Mr. Swint recommends, I think that would be.
Tell you what, I think we'll make this change. We'll have a copy printed in just a couple minutes and we can get our first tentative agreement out of the way. How's that?
That sounds great.
Okay.
We're good with that?
Yep.
Right.
You got it.
Some treasure tickets. Are you on the floor? Where are they? Seven, now.
Print the copies in just a minute. Should we just verify and double check dates on the calendar and?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Every Tuesday through May 6th is what I've got.
Starting April 1st.
Starting April 1st.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yep. No jokes the first day.
That's right.
What then?
No jokes.
Yeah,
First day. Need applause. Smiling over there.
We got like 4 people in this room that can't. help themselves.
I do the best I can.
Yeah, April 1st, that'll.
I think so.
I'll tell you this right now, my dad jokes are.
I actually. It's my time. I just got with that.
You're one of those kids, maybe like dad jokes being a real thing.
Increasing the sum of I think we'll just.
It's not up to you.
The third one's the best.
You're still man to man right now. Just wait till we go zone. You're a big zone guy.
I'm a fundamental guy. It's all the man principles.
Fair enough.
What I'm thinking, we'll, both sign, we each sign one for each other. Let's see, 19th?
Yeah, I'd like a copy.
Yes.
Just to have.
Yeah. Wonderful. To a good start. Very much appreciate the opportunity to work together, get the process moving. Meet somebody you haven't met yet before, and forward to working with everybody as we go through the process.
So far, it's been a great process and board's been great. We appreciate everyone's leadership. It's been good. So we look forward to continue, like you said in the past, walking hand in hand through the process, doing this together and finding an agreement that's beneficial to all of our folks and that ultimately benefits our kids. So it's very true.
Given we're going to alternate in who's going to facilitate, we're certainly willing to, for the next meeting we have. Alternatively, it's not going to hurt our feelings if we would like to. So, any preference?
I would say training wheels aren't here.
Would you like us to?
Yeah, I would say let's have you folks do the first one, and then we'll follow up after that. Get the ball rolling.
Sounds great.
All right, so the next time we will be back is April 1st at 6 p.m. here.
Yep.
Best behaved.
Yes, you may.
Don't make me do the teacher.
Very, very well. They run a tough ship. All right, that sounds good. We'll see everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
You have to go all the way back.